Hello everyone, I'm Kelli Owen. Today I'm going to read to you from Passages. In Wilted Lilies, we were introduced to Lily May, a 15-year-old girl with the ability to hear people's thoughts and, quite recently, speak with the dead. Those abilities helped her survive a kidnapping, but also got the attention of a man who has now swept her away from everything she's ever known. This is Passages, Part 2 in a planned 5-book series, with Part 3 hopefully up by the end of the year. The iron gates hung open and broke the tree line along the road like the great gaping mouth of some unseen monster. As the car slowed down, the gentle clicking of the blinker filled the silence, and Lily May's heart skipped a beat. The maroon sedan passed a small stone building with an oxidized copper plaque declaring they had arrived at Macmillan School for Boys. If Lily May hadn't spent the better part of the ride listening to the calming thoughts of the men who had been there before, the maw of iron and the lichen-covered gatehouse would have been intimidating. Instead, she found herself sitting up taller in the back seat, vying for a better look at her new home. The drive had taken all night and the better part of the morning. Having never left Sussex County before, Lily May was mildly disappointed the scenery had been cloaked in darkness for most of the trip. The moonless night and gentle hum of the engine had lulled her to sleep about the same time the thoughts of the men escorting her had begun to wander aimlessly and provide no more details. Until then, their minds had been a cornucopia of information. The two men in the front seat, wearing suits like required uniforms rather than tailor-made decisions, thought of everyday things. Their wives and children, their paychecks, and the boat one of them hoped to finally have enough to purchase. The man with the shiny cowboy boots, who had introduced himself as Mr. Erne, sat in the back seat with Lily. He was not government, as the detective had thought, and was as eager to hear her talk as she was to listen to his inner voice and the secrets he might hold. Mr. Erne had spoken with Lily May's Mama and Meemaw for over an hour in their humble living room, enjoying stale cookies and fresh iced tea, while discussing Lily May's abilities. He had heard her outlandish testimony regarding her kidnapping and rescue, and he had believed every single word. His desire was to help her learn to both control and freely use her abilities at what he referred to as an educational playground for gifted children. Lily May heard his thoughts and knew he truly believed it was a good place, good enough to trust with his own family members. Sussex County had been afraid of Lily May since she was little, and the three adults discussing her life soon agreed it was best for her to leave fear behind, even if it meant leaving family. He handed her Mama a thick envelope and a folded piece of glossy paper, promising they could visit whenever they wished. She packed the only important possessions she could think of in a tiny brown battered suitcase borrowed from her Mama, a suitcase she'd only ever seen in her parents' room, but never witnessed actually being used. She hugged Mama and Meemaw twice each, through tears of hopeful anxiety, and waved goodbye to the only home she'd ever known. The first leg of the journey was filled with questions and answers, some spoken. Mr. Erne asked, Lily May answered, and then Lily May often heard his internal reactions. He wasn't afraid of her, which felt both foreign and wonderful to Lily May. He was pleasant and seemed nice, but he had a sadness to him that had softened, like aged pain you've grown accustomed to. She heard his thoughts of missing his wife Bree, lost while giving birth to their daughter. He was sad, but he so absolutely adored his daughter, making her his number one priority. Even his sad thoughts were washed with happiness. She almost immediately, instinctively, trusted him. Tommy was not convinced. Tommy had sat unseen by Mr. Erne throughout the drive. He alternated between a crouched position on the center hump of the back seat floor and boldly sitting between them, as if providing a barrier for Lily May against the man. Lily May was pleased Mr. Erne fully believed in Tommy, even though the man couldn't see her young, ghostly companion. Mr. Erne had even asked if Tommy would be joining them when they stopped for dinner. Mister, Lily May giggled as she shook her head. He don't eat nothing no more. He's still welcome to sit with us. Lily May heard the unspoken rest of the sentence clear as day. I'm sure he stays close anyway. Actually, he used to like to wander around like a little adventurer. He would tell me tales of what he'd seen while we were apart. Her smile beamed. It was the first time in her life she'd showed off her talents for hearing thoughts without worrying about repercussions of fear, hate, or shame. Mr. Ern nodded and grinned back, his mind suddenly full of names and the notion they would all adore her. Who are they? She questioned as she reached down to fetch the shoes she'd kicked off before they'd even pulled out of the worn patch of grass Papa referred to as their driveway. The other children at Macmillan. His smile was kind and reassuring. Are they like me? Lily May wondered how many had died to gain their abilities, like Tommy had, and how many were like her, born with it. And if you want to know that answer, or to meet the other children and see what kind of crazy abilities happen in my world, you'll have to read passages. If you haven't read Wilted Lilies, hop on over to Amazon, where the ebook is only 99 cents, free if you have Kindle Unlimited, and then you can start your adventure. For those of you who like to learn the secrets behind stories, become a patron. This particular series has several goodies in the secret vault, including what can only be called a yearbook, I guess, which I use to track all the kids at Macmillan. You can find a link to my Patreon or anything else I'm up to at kellyowen.com. Thank you for having me, Sadie. And thanks to everyone who stopped in to listen.